Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming to the official launch of the Svoboda Satellite Package. I have always believed that important resources such as satellite capacities should be used to broadcast information, not disinformation. First, we had to fight against the spread of disinformation and more specifically against propaganda which is used by the Kremlin as a weapon to justify its war against Ukraine. Just after Russia started its full-scale war in Ukraine, the Deloire Committee and Reporters Without Borders drew the attention to serious gaps in the action of the EU to fight Russian propaganda. European satellite companies were broadcasting propaganda and misinformation, which was prohibited in the European Union in third countries, including in Russia, in the occupied territories of Ukraine, as well as in the Middle East and Latin America. This was against the sanctions adopted in the European Union. André Lange from the Deloire Committee shared his concerns with many members of the Parliament, but unfortunately they went unanswered until he reached my office. We sent several letters to raise awareness of the problem to both the European Commission and the responsible national authorities, as well as to the satellite owners. Many members of the Parliament co-signed these letters. This led to a stronger enforcement of the sanctions, a larger number of propaganda outlets on the list of sanctions, and more responsibility on the side of satellite owners. In other words, it led to a more decisive action against Russian propaganda. European satellite companies are no longer allowed to broadcast Russian propaganda worldwide. At the same time, we worked on the European Media Freedom Act, which strengthens the cooperation between national authorities to fight foreign propaganda in the European Union. This means that the EU will be more efficient and faster to remove channels that disseminate war propaganda and are a threat to our security. Disinformation knows no border, so we need to coordinate our action across borders to make sure that there are no loopholes. The Svoboda Satellite project was a logical continuation of ending the spread of war propaganda and disinformation to try to convey independent information to Russian-speaking people. Now, thanks to Reporters Without Borders and the Deloire Committee, we have initiated the Svoboda Satellite project aimed at Russia. Through the satellite, access will be provided in Russia to a wide range of independent Russian language journalism and international news. I want to thank everyone who have made it possible to stop the spread of disinformation and to launch the Svoboda Satellite Package. I would like to cordially thank André Lange from the Deloire Committee, as well as Christophe Deloire and Jim Phillipoff from Reporters Without Borders. I would also like to thank Stina Vaga from my office, who efficiently coordinated the activities. We have stopped lies. We have started the truth. We have launched Svoboda. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ansip, for your kind words and for hosting this event. I have to say that I'm really impressed by seeing so many people in this room for the official launch of the Svoboda Satellite Package. I'm really moved to see many of you in this room who have gone into exile, who were forced to do this, and who are here, united today, to create an access to the Russian. Thank you so much, Mrs. Vice President of the European Commission, dear Vera, for your support to journalism during the whole mandate of the European Commission. As I start by expressing our gratitude, I want, of course, to express gratitude for the trust of all your media who are now positioned on the Svoboda Satellite Package. I want to thank, of course, the Ethics Committee, the Denis Diderot Committee for its idea. It was a long way, a very long way since you got the idea, and we made it become a reality since then, more than 1 year. It took more than 1 year to be today in this room. And of course, special thanks to Jim Phillipoff, the head of the project. Congrats, Jim, for your wonderful work. And thanks to the RSF team. The whole team was really committed, and especially Thibaut and Jan. We know the situation of press freedom in Russia. Russia is now ranked 164 out of 180 countries in the World Press Freedom Index published by RSF. At least 28 journalists are right now imprisoned in Russia. Since Vladimir Putin took power, 40 journalists were killed in Russia. More than 1,500 journalists had to go into exile after the attack on Ukraine. And 300 media and journalists are now classified as foreign agents in their own country. We know that 2/3 of the Russian public is informed or disinformed through TV. So that's really important to increase the number of Russian citizens that have access to independent journalism, to journalism worthy of the name. And you do represent this. According to figures, there are between 6 and 9% of the Russian public that has today access to independent journalism. We have to make this number much bigger. And this is one of the purposes of the Svoboda Satellite Package. RSF has been doing a lot. In any case, we've been doing our best for a long time, but especially since the attack on Ukraine. We have lodged 8 complaints with the International Criminal Court and the Prosecutor General of Ukraine, and 2 complaints with the French courts. We are in touch and do support 90 media, Russian media, in exile. We have helped 150 journalists to go into exile. And I have to mention the presence of Marina Ovsyannikova. We coordinated her escape from Russia. So that's why it's really very strong for us to see you today. The first package, because this package could be increased in the future, has 9 TV and radio channels, such as, sorry for the pronunciation, Echo, Radio Sakharov, Current Time, Euro Radio, TV8, West 24, iStories, Holod Media, Novaya Gazeta, Europe. As I mentioned, we will continue to grow up to 25 media outlets on the satellite package. It is a unique opportunity to have Russian newsrooms work together. Now is clearly time to unite, to mutualize, and to show the diversity of Russian journalism. I will just quote Sergei. No, you will not have a last name for security reasons. Sergei is a Moscow resident who is currently viewing the package. He informed us a few days ago as follows. When I learned about the Svoboda Satellite Package, I felt grateful to know that such a project exists. I can easily access these new channels on my dish. Thanks to it, we, citizens, can have access to more free, independent, and pluralistic information and thus create our own opinion. The Svoboda project for RSF is clearly a testament to our commitment to the right to access journalism and clearly an effort to build upon the resilience of the Russian journalism community in exile. We are clearly determined, and it will be my last words, to empower Russian-speaking populations with the tools they need to preserve, to protect their freedom of opinion and expression. Through this project, we prove that democracies can export independent journalism to reverse the logic of propaganda. What does happen now? We have despotic regimes which export their propaganda toward democracies. With this project, this is clearly not propaganda against propaganda, but this is independent journalism exported from media, from democracies, by media, mostly media in exile, toward people living in a country, in countries with a despotic regime. Thank you so much for your support. I will, if I remember well, give the floor to you, Jim. No, to you, sorry. Dear Vera, yes.
No.
Thank you so much for being here today. Sorry.
Yes. So, thank you very much, Christophe Deloire, Secretary General of Reporters Without Borders. And next I would like to ask Jim Phillipoff, Director of the Svoboda Project, to take the floor, please. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, and thank you very much for hosting us. Thank you, Vice President Jourova, for all your great support of the project. And thank you, big thank you to Dr. Andre Lang, my co-founder of the Dennis Diderot Committee, who is a one-man lobbying army. If anybody needs anything done, you know, Andre is the man who can get it done. And of course, Christophe and Thibault from RSF for taking up the project. Thanks so much. And thank you all for coming. Personally, this is a dream come true for me. I can't really believe that it's all happened, to tell you the truth. When I first wrote an article about how Eutelsat can positively influence the media situation in Russia, I had no idea that 2 years later, I'd be sitting here in the European Parliament actually launching such a program, but here we are. And it's the effect of this has happened essentially because of the work of so many people in the room. I named a few. And I've also been inspired by many of the people in this room as we've continued to work. Vice President Jourova, I remember your calls to continue the great work of Radio Free Europe during the Cold War. And I know we can expand upon that work. We must use all available tools and focus our approach to help win the minds of Russian speakers everywhere. Now, it was really my experience starting and managing pay TV companies in Ukraine and around the former Soviet Union, which gave me an understanding of how important satellite TV is in the region. As Christophe mentioned, so many people continue to get their news information and continue to watch television as their main source of information. And in Russia itself, more than 45% of households have satellite as their main form of television reception. Eutelsat, which is a French company with whom we are working on this project, accounts for at least 30% of all television households in Russia. Their satellite network is essentially providing much of the television in Russia. But I applaud Eutelsat for taking the right decision and agreeing to work with us on this project. The current satellite position from which we are broadcasting is an extremely powerful one. The Hotbird, as it's called, at 13 degrees east, covers 61 million homes total, with 33 million in Europe, including 4.5 million in Russia, and about 800,000 households in the occupied Ukrainian territories. These households use this satellite in particular as their main form of television reception. Now, we'll continue to work with Eutelsat to increase our coverage in Russia and beyond, but this is a very good start and allows us to establish a base for safely broadcasting our package, which has the potential to reach up to 25 channels, as Christophe mentioned, at our current level of bandwidth. I say safely broadcast because this satellite is a new one. We're broadcasting on the 13 East position from a satellite called 13G, which has anti-jamming capabilities using new technologies. Had that not been the case, there would be great danger that Russia could have already started jamming our signal. They've been jamming popular Ukrainian satellite positions since the beginning of the war. So clearly, they have this capability. There's no question about that. But with this new technology, we're able to safely provide a signal that is they're not able to jam using these existing technologies. Our package of channels is growing, which is extremely exciting to all of us. As Christophe mentioned, we've got 9 channels, including 3 brand new channels that have never been seen before, essentially created by our project. Now, when I say created by our project, I don't mean that we actually make the content. We're using many of the content producers in this room, as Christophe mentioned, journalists in exile, to essentially put these channels into a broadcast format so that more people can enjoy them through a different form of media. And thank you to all our great broadcast partners for making this possible, because without you, we wouldn't be here. We have a small post-production team that's helped to create the 3 channels, which include Cordon Live, Svoboda TV, which is a conglomeration of many different media outlets. Christophe mentioned some of them, and Belarus Tomorrow, which is essentially for the Belarus market. We have plans for 2 more channels of our own productions, potentially within the coming weeks. Now, we believe that having such a dynamic mix of independent Russian language channels, as well as Belarus, Moldavian, and Ukrainian, can be like a breath of fresh air to the media landscape in the region. We should understand that Putin's information war has been so successful partially because of the limited nature of the West's response. It's time for us to consolidate our forces and really concentrate on providing an answer to the Kremlin's propaganda onslaught. I know that Svoboda Satellite is an important step in that direction, and I'm honored to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jim. I will introduce the next speakers in this order. First, will take the floor, Mrs. Vice President. Then Olga Prokopieva will speak on behalf of the Ethics Committee, then the Content Committee, then André Lange, last but not least. And we will be open to your questions if the press has questions. Dear Vera.
Thank you very much, Christophe. It seems to me that I will not be available for the questions. Such a happy moment for me. I have to leave at 2, so I have to apologize. But I want to say a few words about the project and about maybe the context of how we try to improve the information policy. You said, Jim, that, how did you say it, that the limited nature of the response of the West causes the success of Russian propaganda. I would call it the era of innocence is over. And we had to also change some of the principal things which we would never have believed that we will change it. For instance, sanctioning the so-called media like Russia Today and Sputnik. But I am extremely grateful for the existence of this project, Svoboda Satellite Package, and I want to thank to Andrus and to Christophe and Reporters Without Borders and the Deloire committee represented by you, Jim. There are not many good news recently, but this is one of them, because this project is exactly what we needed, and I will tell you why in a minute. But first, I want to say that how I understand our common work, this Svoboda package and the Radio Free Russia, that we say very clear thing that freedom, Svoboda matters, and truth matters. And I think it was you, Christophe, who said that we want to support independent journalism, not some kind of other propaganda. No, we want the facts to be delivered to the people of Russia. And we saw the people of Russia queuing in front of during the funeral of Mr. Navalny, of Alexei. How many more are there in Russia who don't want just to get brainwashed by Putin's propaganda? They want to hear and read the facts. And I think that this is great that this project is exactly focusing on that, on the technological way how to deliver the facts to the Russian people. We both lived in communism. We had some nice stories, no, about our young. Not so nice. Not so nice, but we were young and innocent. So, but I remember when I was young, we were listening to the Voice of America with my parents. And my mother was very, very ugly to my father. She was telling him all the time, don't eat and drink, I don't hear what they are saying, because it had to be very silent. And I don't know how it happened to me that after many, many years, I am privileged to help the projects like this and to start a project like the Radio Free Russia, because it's very similar. We could give it the name of Voice of Europe, but no, I wanted to have that Free Russia in the title. It was a bit provocative title, because we are not establishing any kind of radio. The project has 3 elements. One is helping the Russian journalists to have some reasonable standard of living and conditions for living in the EU. There are many. We register 4 hubs, Amsterdam, Berlin, Prague, and Riga, but there are living in many other places. We wanted to deal with practical things. We wanted to deal with the need to give them the chance to continue doing the job. So I was heavily lobbying with the media houses to enable them to work under their roof, and also I was heavily lobbying with YouTube and some other platforms to give them the space in their system, but also to guarantee that they are paid for their work. And the third part of Radio Free Russia project was exactly what this project is trying to solve. And I'm really happy about that, because to deliver the facts, the work of Russian journalists in exile to the Russian people on the Russian territory, for me it was the most difficult part, because it required technological solutions. Of course, we were also discussing with Eutelsat and some others, VPN systems. I am in constant contact with YouTube, which is the last Western platform which is still alive in Russia, because of the fairy tales I heard. That Putin doesn't have courage to switch it off, because there is Peppa the Pig, no, or something like that. So I'm really happy. We will be supporting the Radio Free Russia further on. Also your project, which is our common project, if I may say, Svoboda Satellite Package. We have to continue doing that because we must not fail in this war, and we've been failing in this information war. I'm not happy to say it, but we were not ready for such aggressive communication and for such a masterpiece in Russian ability to tailor the disinformation campaigns per member state. Different narratives. Some are common, but many different narratives, just abusing the vulnerabilities of the society and historical tendencies and language proximity. So we have to continue doing what we do. Maybe to last comment on the context. Already before the invasion, I proposed to the College of Commissioners, and it was a surprise for many colleagues because I am known defender of the freedom of speech, and I heard myself saying sometimes in January 2022 that we have to do three things. First, we have to massively intensify fight against disinformation on our territory, not only by pushing Facebook to do more, but also supporting free media and civil society fact-checking and so on. Second thing, to immediately prohibit the Kremlin amplions like Russia Today and Sputnik. We were heavily criticized after we did it, but I heard in Germany that it was the reason, because we sanctioned the Russian media, it was the reason why Putin evicted or chased out of the country Deutsche Welle. And I could not believe this naivism. Do you really think that Putin needs our example to know how to impose the most horrible censorship you can imagine? Yeah. So there is still a lot of naivism. And the third thing was this Radio Free Russia activity to deliver the messages and not narratives. I hate the word narratives. The evidence-based truth. Evidence-based truth to the Russian people. So once again, thank you very much for this project, because this is exactly what we need. And if there is some support needed from the Commission, I'm available. I don't have any money, but I have a lot of moral support for you. Thank you.
I'm honored to participate and represent the Association Russie Liberté and the Russian civil society in Europe in the launch of such an important project as Svoboda, and contribute to our main goal to tackle Russian propaganda and fight against the Kremlin destructive criminal regime. I want to start just with some words about propaganda in Russia, and then speaking about the Ethics Committee. Propaganda kills, and Putin uses propaganda for many years now to manipulate Russian citizens and prepares them to war. Militarization of the society, rewriting of history, substitution of values, legitimization of violence and hatred against activists, neighbors, minorities, misinformation, lies, fakes, etc. Russian state TV channels are not media, but the Kremlin's communication agents, and Putin regime spent billions of euros to indoctrinate Russians on what to think, how to live, whom to kill, and even whom to love and not to love. And also to influence European democracies as well. Since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the media field has been completely erased from pluralism, with no independent media existing anymore, or totally censored by new laws, such as the law on discrimination against the armed forces and stifling tactics such as declaring them foreign agents or undesirable organizations. As Christophe already explained, pressures on independent journalists trying to cover protests in Russia, to inform about the war in Ukraine or criticize the regime are massive, and there are 28 journalists imprisoned and hundreds pushed to exile. Independent media internet sites are also blocked by Roskomnadzor, and social media are restricted and drastically monitored. So, millions of Russians are in an information vacuum, and some of them prefer to lose interest in the war, or worse, still believe the propaganda. To get them out of that vacuum, all the levers should be used, and with the Svoboda project, we try to reach out the minds of these people by providing them with different information, a critical and verified viewpoint. As a member of the Ethics Committee, the Association Russie Liberté that I represent will give insights from Russian civil society movements to help the Svoboda project be more effective and to cover topics to raising civic awareness in Russia that is crucial for us. Indeed, being part of several coalitions such as Free Russians Global, Voice of Free Russia, the Platform of Civic and Anti-War Initiatives, whose representatives are in this room, our organization will help disseminate information, Svoboda channels, and guide project development. In 2 years of war, our coalitions have acquired proven expertise in anti-war and anti-propaganda actions all over the world, and we keep close contact with civil society inside Russia. The Svoboda project will also be, I believe, an important tool for showing actions of anti-war Russians abroad, setting an example and enabling Russian society at odds with the regime to feel less alone and isolated. And lastly, together with RSF, Free Russia Foundation and Association Institut Andrei Sakharov, we are opening in Paris a professional recording studio for Russian independent media that will also, I hope, serve creating content for Svoboda. Long life to this incredibly useful project, and thank you very much.
The next speaker is Gleb Belichenko from Novaya Gazeta Europe on behalf of the Content Committee.
First of all, many thanks to DIDRO Committee, European Commission, Reporters Without Borders, and personally Jim Phillipoff. It's a great opportunity to be here today. My name is Gleb Belichenko, and I'm a Russian journalist in exile. Before the full-scale invasion of Russia in Ukraine, I was working in Novaya Gazeta in Moscow. It's an independent media and newspaper with more than 30 years history. But after the war started, some people from Novaya Gazeta staff moved to Riga and opened Novaya Gazeta Europe. It is difficult to stay in Russia and doing our business because of war censorship. Working conditions for journalists that stayed in Russia are now very difficult. Authorities put journalists in prison, fine them, and force them out of the country. They also classify them as foreign agents. A lot of Russian media outlets in exile are classified by Russian authorities as undesirable organizations. But journalists in exile have some privileges. We could call things by their proper names. For example, war instead, special military operation. We describe war crimes in our articles and videos. And on the other hand, we show another face of Russia. For example, you could visit our YouTube channel, Novaya Gazeta Europe, subscribe, and watch the stories of people in Russian regions, interviews of people who are against Putin and war, and they are still in Russia. Millions of people. Alexei Navalny was buried last week in Moscow, and thousands of people went to his grave to honor of his memory. And we should support these people by doing our business, independent journalism. Now Russian authorities test internet firewall, we call it Cheburnet, and we are waiting for blocking YouTube and popular VPN clients in the near future. That's why the project Svoboda Satellite is so important. It's a great opportunity for us to spread our content in Russia in the conditions of censorship. Thank you.
And last but not least, as I mentioned, André Lange from the Diderot Committee.
Thank you, Christophe. I think it's a big day. I will not be long. The Diderot Committee is it was born. It was born the 21st of March. Jim published in the Kiev Post the seminal paper with a proposal of taking sanctions against the two Russian platforms on the Eutelsat satellite and replacing them by a package of international news channels and Russian journalists in exile. And I didn't know Jim. I just identify him with LinkedIn, and I call him Jim. I'm a former expert at the European Audiovisual Observatory, the first organization, European organization of which Federation of Russia was a member, excluded, of course, in March. And I have some experience. I'm retired, but I have some experience of the Russian market, and I think that you analyze this correct. Let's work together. And we started. We have launched a petition with academics, professionals, experts, and I think it should be mentioned, all the members of the Ukrainian, the National Council for Radio and Television, the regulatory authority in Ukraine, which was directly given legitimacy to a project. And then a lot of people contacted us, help us to promote the idea in the press, in the organization. We have created the Stop Broadcasting Coalition with various organizations, Russie Liberté, l'Union des Ukrainiens de France, various Russian organizations in Europe. And we have started to make lobbying at the European Parliament, also with Mrs. Jourova, you remember. And I thank you. You have been the first, I think it should be said, you have been the first to publicly support a project, and Mr. Ansip has helped us to promote the idea on the European Parliament. Thank you so much. Thank you for Reporters Sans Frontières who joined us to launch one action against the three main channels on the French satellite Eutelsat. We won the case in the Conseil d'État together, and the project is developed with a lot of support, various people in the room, and I think it's really one example, and I think for me it's really the conclusion. It's the example of the illustration of a citizen initiative with the support. Well, the media, the social media were important for the connection, but the dynamism of an NGO like Reporters Sans Frontières and the receptivity by political leaders. And I think this is the miracle. And I think this is one of the nice aspects of Europe, that citizen initiative could lead to projects like this. And this will be my conclusion. And of course, maybe all the support to the Russian opponents, but also to the Ukrainian fighting for the victory.
Merci beaucoup, André.